Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for a few minutes of fun. Gathered some bits and bobs. Not quite sure what I'm going to play with yet. I do know I'm going to play with some Crackle background ATCs. These are on MDF from Calico Craft Parts. I used to be on the design team there, and I'm lucky enough still to have a whole horde of beautiful MDF bits and bobs to play with. I've worked with Crackle on ATCs in lots of ways. Crackle through stencils to create shaping, Crackle straight on with a little bit of rusty embellishing, and quite often that, lands me into nature. There are some die cuts on here behind the real lavender stems. Dimension on that little twig and alder cones picked up on a walk. One of the Tim Holtz butterflies, one of the Tim Holtz transparent wings that were the very early version. And I don't know if we're going to go all the way to there, but I got those snippets of tissue paper that we had the other day from covering the books. I've got these tiny little houses that I don't even know where I picked up, but you can get little wooden sets like these very cheaply, metal bits, glass baubles. I've got the leftover winter die cuttings, so there's lots of fir branches here, and it's still wintry out there, let's not forget. There's snow, little bits of snow left on the ground here, and more forecast, so it's not time to leave winter behind as far as I'm concerned. I'm still right in the middle of it. In any case, that's what we're going to have a play with. I already crackled these the other day because I was in the mood for crackling, but I've got one to just show you that process, but then we'll leave that one to do its business and move on to these. I'm going to get the craft mat out. Back in a sec. Step one is to just put some Crackle onto here. I'm using the Ranger Texture Paste Opaque Crackle, and bits of mine have got little lumps in because there have been bits that I put back into the jar on the top and didn't get back down into the main body of the Crackle, and so that's dried a bit, and in places I've got a couple of little tiny lumps, but that'll happen if you don't take proper care. You'll see I'm putting it on with a plastic palette knife, just scraping it on, sort of not quite as thick as you'd have peanut butter, really. But according to how thickly you put it on, that will change the amount of Crackle you've got. If you do a really thin bit, you'll have tiny weeny little bits of Crackle, and you also run the risk that it won't have quite enough body to crackle at all if you put it on thicker. So here's what I'm talking about. If I scrape it just onto the edge here, like these bits around the edge, it's going to dry out at the top here. What I really want to try and do, probably with a coffee stirrer, if I've got one nearby, is to scrape that back down right into the body of what's down there, and then that moisture clings together. I'm not in a massively dry climate. Tim Holtz, who lives in Arizona, recommends sheets of cling film over your mediums to stop them drying out. So if you live somewhere where that real dry climate is an issue. And then what I tend to do, okay, let's finish the other thought first. Where it's thicker, you'll get larger Crackles. So let's show you on here. So there the paste was thicker, big Crackles. There the paste was much thinner, small Crackles. There, absolutely tiny Crackles. You'd need a microscope to see those. And right down there in that dip, a bit too thin to crackle at all. And I love that look. I mean, that's deliberate on my part, because I like having areas of texture that are different from each other. If you want a really smooth, even Crackle across the whole piece, then you want to try and spread it as evenly as possible and have as little sort of surface disruption as possible. Me, I actively encourage surface disruption because I want that Crackle to have a chance to be interesting and dynamic and broken. And also, when I'm working it, you can then seal it with a medium to make sure it all stays put. I, again, actively invite little bits of Crackle to come off. I'm quite rough with it so that you get those little moments of broken Crackle right down to the surface. I may or may not achieve that today. It happens by chance, and that's the way I like it. Good, so we can set that aside to do its crackling. You can't heat dry Crackle. You won't get the cracks, so you have to let it just do its thing and let it get on with the business while you go and do something else, which is exactly what we're going to do. Where are we going to put you? Somewhere out of the way. Grand. So these little snippets of tissue I thought would be quite nice. Just kind of heading down one side. One palette. I'm sort of tempted to go green for both of them, which is going to mean chopping together a bit of palette, but I think that'll do. I think I'm fine with that. Could go green and yellow. It's quite a yellowy yellow. I'd end up putting green paint over it or something to make it greener, I suspect, because I'm not quite in the yellow mood yet. That when the daffodils and crocuses start coming out, maybe. So I'm thinking just getting a little bit like this. And the joy of putting tissue paper over Crackle is that you do get to keep seeing the texture underneath. What I might do is cut quite close to that line, so that line is the edge of it. Usually I would go for a rough edging of tissue paper by painting water on and just making it soft edged. But I think it's a different thing if it's actually strictly going down the side of an ATC. I think that's just going to give us a really nice accent. And let's have a look at the yellow just to see if I can manage it. Red and yellow still to come. Orange and pink I'm starting to make my peace with. I've always loved orange and pink. I just never feel quite at home working with them. Red and yellow I remain ambivalent about. Yellow, as I say, is fine for daffodils and occasional tulips. And buttercups. What else is allowed to be yellow? Primrose. Well, primrose is barely yellow anyway if you get the right kind. That's quite nice, isn't it, that they're not the same colour? But would it be even nicer if they were the same colour? As I say, this is going to involve a little bit of cheating. Cheating like we did on the book. Oh, if you don't know what I mean about the rough cut and the painting the edge with the water to get a rough edge to your tissue, which is going to not show up as much when you glue it down, that's in the book covering video. This really is going to be a cheat because I don't have a bottom half green. I've only got top halves. But one might as well use them. This strip of paper is here, and why not? Well, maybe I can manage half a yellow. Look at this. Can we manage half a yellow? And pretend it's in the green palette. And it's just shifted a little bit. That could be quite good. Just to vary it. In which case, probably this one needs to go at the top. Because otherwise these... Oh, here comes my particular brand of perfectionism. If those two are in the same position, why would it change at the bottom? Whereas if we're just saying this is a different colour palette, and these are at the top, and those are at the bottom, then it would be going on to do those afterwards. Now I've spoiled my game because I've left that word greens in the middle there, and without it, is it going to be long enough to cover the whole ATC? It's enough. It's enough if we line up with that. Grand. I'm just going to stick those down and let that be the starting point. I don't know where else we're going to go. So I've got a little bit of Distress Collage medium in the bottom of here. You can use any glue for this. Because it's right at the bottom, it's been sitting in all that air in the pot. It has dried out a little bit, so I'm just giving it a little spritz of water. I've also got quite a wet brush, because really when you're working with tissue paper, it's quite nice if your medium is fairly fluid, because it'll just help soften the whole process. So that's mixed up in there. Good, that'll do a nice job. So I'm just going to go down this side, getting into the nooks and crannies so that I can press the tissue paper into the nooks and crannies. And there's, as you can see, there's not much crackle gone on down this side. For whatever reason, maybe it dried too quickly, maybe it was too cold in the room. Mediums can be responsive to the environment. So sometimes you'll get a really good crackle and you'll go, wow, genius. Other times it will just be a little bit reluctant and you'll think, oh no, I messed it up. No, you probably didn't. It was probably too warm in the room, too cold in the room. It happened too quickly. It wasn't quite the right thickness. And then I tend to like to gently go with my fingertips so that I can really make sure it's getting down into those cracks. But do be careful at this point. This is the point when tissue paper, when it's wet, is really happy to rip. like those words coming down there. Nice. Okay, and up to here, same thing, just some glue down that side. And we've got these at the top. And again, I'm going to let that line go. I'll just trim a bit closer to the edge of that palette, so we don't have that sharp line of tissue paper. Let's pop you there. I've left a little bit of overhang, which I'm going to trim off, probably with a, see, there wasn't enough glue left on there. That might get enough down onto the surface. I'll probably trim it off using a little sanding stick, emery board, nail file, sandpaper I may have around. Oh, I think I've got one of the lovely PaperArtsy sanding blocks, actually. Much more official than nail files. And then lining you up with that. And pressing down, so it doesn't quite reach the bottom, but we could always put another little sheet of word down there. In fact, we may have some words left over. Yep, look, strictly that goes sideways, but do we mind? Are we going to be able to see? Are we going to be bothered by the time we've done everything else that we're going to do to this ATC? Let's just put a little bit of numbers and grid and stuff down there, so that it's not bare, so that whatever happens above happens down here as well. That'll do me. So again, just making sure I've got really good adhesion, that I'm allowing the tissue paper to get down into all those little nooks and crannies to keep that texture. Grand. And a little bit over the top will help seal it, will help strengthen it. And the collage medium is matte, so it's not going to be all glossy and shiny and bother me. Here we go. That back into the water. Close that up. That I am going to give a little blast with the heat tool. Once the crackle is crackled, you can heat around it as much as you like. I'm going to give that a little blast with the heat tool to dry that, so that we can move on to having a play with what we might want to do next. Back in a sec. On we go. So if you've got a bit of sandpaper, that's fine. If you've got an emery board nail file, that's fine. I've got one of these PaperArtsy sanding blocks, which I like because you can get hold of it. And then you just take it around the edge. I'm pulling backwards away from here. It's just much easier to get right to the line than it is if you're trying to trim with scissors. So if you've got a hard surface, you can do this if you've glued something to a tag as well, but obviously against this hard surface. And there you go, you're right to the line, and you can even get around those little curvy corners that these ATCs have got, which gives you a really nice finish. Obviously, you don't have to be working on MDF. If you're working on card or paper, though, with Crackle, it's quite a good idea to glue it down maybe to some waste cardboard. That would be the other thing I would do if I was crackling. I hope you can hear me over the sanding. I hope so, because my mouth is pretty much next to the microphone, so it should be fine. There we go. That just clears that off with a really clean edge down those sides. Yeah, if you're working with Crackle on just plain card, and this is really heavy cardstock, as the Crackle crackles, it'll sort of curl up the paper. So yeah, glue down the paper to some waste cardboard so that you've got a nice firm surface for it to go onto. And I mean, one of the things I love about this is that you get something that isn't just paper. It's got a bit more presence in the world, a bit more chunky oomph to it. Good, so we can put away that and that for now. Yeah, I am quite tempted by these little greenery sprigs. These are, oh, see, already that's making me happy, just as it is. Maybe not that one. There's one I like that shape one. It's a bit little. There is a larger version. These are the Holtz winter green. See, I'm drawn to the same one. That's ironic. That's a slightly paler one on the darker greens. That's a darker one on the paler greens, and that's making me happy exactly as it is. Just stop now, can't I? No, don't do it. There'll always be more you can add. There's another of those, so maybe it's a couple of those. That's a really big one. I think that's probably a bit too much. Swamp the ATC. No, it's not unpleasant. It's not quite as finely detailed as the other, obviously, because it's larger scale. And on an ATC, little details are quite delicious. So I'm back to there. Maybe it's 2 little sprigs of greenery. Is this going to be too much? Who knows? Until you lie it down there, you don't know. You've got to try these things and see what they do. So that if one has the same first sprig, but then adds a different sprig, it just changes the look enough that could be quite good. Yeah, I'm gonna work with that for now, or maybe let's just try one of these instead of that one so that we've got some more variety. But with this, don't want it all the way over there. Well, that's quite cute, isn't it? It's juggling. It's finding out what's going to work for you. That's going in the other direction. That going in the other direction could also be quite... I do like the berries. I do like the berries. I do like berries. Anybody who's seen my stamps will know that berries recur. Anybody who's seen my watercolour flip-throughs will know. I'll link watercolour flip-throughs for you down below so that you can have a look at some of my actual watercolour botanicals if you missed those. I'm already enjoying that so much that I sort of don't want to do anything else. No, come on. I've got these little glass pebbles. We used these recently on something, can't remember what. They usually find them in the floristry department. People put them in vases to hold sprigs of dried flowers. Dried flower stems, fake flower stems, little glass baubles. And the joy of that is you get to see the colour through. I think one thing I will do, so this is always worth it, is just do a little colour wash of some kind. It's looking like it might be green, to focus the attention on these crackles. So you want quite a watery wash of something, let's say paint, could be distressing, could be whatever medium you happen to have to hand. In fact, no, let's go with a little bit of maybe tinned peas, because I think that's a sort of mid-green. So this is Fresco paint. You could use peeled paint, distress paint. You could use distress inks and oxides. But what I do want is to make sure this is quite watery so that it's not going to completely smother up my crackle. But what I want it to do is to go down into those crackles just to draw attention to them. And then on the surface of the paste, I just want to lift up so that it doesn't become too green. If you do, the darker the colour you do this with, the more definition those crackles will have. But I'm not feeling sort of dark and grungy particularly today. The sun is out despite the snow, and it's quite nice having those little winter greenery things to just remind us that spring will come one day. And in the meantime, there's still beautiful greenery to enjoy. And I might take a little bit down just here, this edge where there's the writing, not covering up the palette itself, but it just allows it to tone in and blend in again a little. I'm sorry, I'm going back in with another layer because I'm enjoying the green. It's making me happy today. Yeah, that'll do. So allowing it to seep down into those cracks just allows you a little better look at the crackle. I might go with a little wash of something really dark just to see what I can achieve with it. So the paint will be permanent. What's on there now is going to stay there. Distress ink obviously always remains reactive to water. So if I put some on, it'll go down in the cracks, but then the bit I pick up, oh, look at that. See, that was the right choice. Maybe I am feeling grungy. That's Scorched timber, darkest of the darks, unless you go to actual black, which I rarely do. But then I should be able to lift up, yeah, what's on the surface, so that it'll just stay down in those cracks, again, giving them a bit more definition. That's quite enjoyable. Grand. Okay, let's have a look at that. And let's have a look at that. Very nice. So little glass baubles I'm quite in the mood for. Little sprigs of greenery I'm quite in the mood for. I don't want them covering up the whole of my lovely palette, however. And over here. So somehow this one is better at not covering up the green. Ah, it's because the words are that side and here the words are that side, so the green is further over. Not to worry. That's how you get repetition and variation. What about this one? Is this a better bet for not cover? Oh, see, because it's lower down, doesn't cover up quite so much greenery. But having that there does cover up quite a lot of crackle. You win some, you lose some. Maybe it's one sprig. Maybe I've gone over the top by having the berries. I'm just going to have a little look at a little house and see if a little house is something I want on here. Looks as though it might be. That one, and or little alder cones might be something I want on here. Oh, see, that's also good. Maybe I want both. Little cottage in a wood, although that house doesn't look much like a cottage. How's that? Which other one then? Maybe... I thought this one was open, but it isn't. Let's see if there's another one in here that pleases me. Oh, that one is a little cottage in the wood, look, up there. It's even got a little picket fence to it. So if we use that one, then this one's of a sort of different scale, different size windows, so maybe we want another little cottagey one. Like so. And then they've both got a little heart on, which is sweet. A nod to Valentine's Day. I'm not big into Valentine's Day, I have to confess. What with my love of red, it's not exactly my festival. And I now need to reposition because, yeah, see what a difference just that change of position makes. Here it's all feeling quite full on and sort of bulky, and then you look at them this way around, you say, oh no, I've got loads of space to play with, loads of space. So I think that's quite a good starting point, and maybe we could have a little berry one as well, or would we rather have a little glass bead? That's quite big in reference to the house. I mean, I know the branches are quite big in reference to the house as well. I think we might be saving the glass beads for another day. I don't like that one as much as that one. That one's slightly captured my heart with the shape of itself. Grand. I think what I might do is give these a little bit of embossing glossiness with the embossing glaze, distress embossing glaze. And in order to do that, I'll want to probably paint them first, or ink them, and then we'll put some embossing powder over the top. So I'm just going to have a look at my embossing powder colours and see what colour we might want to go with. Back in a sec. It is a brighter day out today, but I think it's getting a little dark in the room as the sun moves around the other side of the house, so I have switched on the other light, and I know it will distort the colour a little bit, but I think it's worth it for the extra clarity probably. I can't decide what colour I want to make these houses, but I've got multiple houses, so I can try one of each and then see what I've got. And it may be that when I do it, I like it straight away anyway, and we're done. The other thing is, you have options to go, if I go over white with, say, the speckled egg powder, that'll give me one kind of look, quite a subtle one. If I go speckled egg over speckled egg, that'll give me a more intense version. If I were to go speckled egg over the green, that would give me another version. In fact, maybe that's the one we should try. The other powder I've got out is Uncharted Mariner, big favourite. So there are so many multiples, it's a bit difficult to know where to start. I'm going to start with a little bit of speckled egg distress paint on the mat and a little brush. Give me a little brush. So this is another of the cheap craft brushes. See, I'm already enjoying the speckled egg. So I think we can eliminate Uncharted Mariner. It very often is a process of elimination. Oh, I've just thought I could do front and back if I want to not embark on other houses. I could do a front and back version to see what I prefer. I'm going to do one with the white just to see the difference, and so you can see the difference as well, because it should be a slightly different affair if it goes over white. You can see I really only needed a teeny tiny bit of paint for this. I might straight away paint another couple of houses while the paint is out, because it's silly, and they are adorable in both white and speckled egg. So grab me, so what do I need to do? I need to do this one in white in case I decide to go that way. Maybe I want to go, see, maybe I want two houses the same, just facing in different directions. That's poetic variation. There we go. So we'll make you white, and we'll make you, where are you? I need another picket fence. Another picket fence to go. Sorry, looking for my paper towel. Blue. Well, speckled egg. One of the more recent distress colours, but one that just made its way straight into my heart. Do another little coat of that because it's soaked into the wood a little bit. They do tend to dry a little darker than they go on. There we go. Simple as. Put another little bit of white on there. There's a little bit of speckled egg still in my brush, but I'm not going to sweat it because I'm about to put speckled egg embossing powder over it in any case. If I did it while the paint was still wet, I could just use that to adhere the... I am going to, controversially, put some of this back in here, even though there's maybe the teensiest bit of white paint on my brush. I'm not going to worry too much. There we go. So it's dry these and then put some embossing ink on, which I think is probably the safer way to go overall. Or let's just sprinkle the ink on right now. Ink, powder. Sprinkle the powder on right now and hope that they're wet enough to hold it. They might be. That one might not be. Although I did just do another coat. Oh, hello. I've still got my pad on. So over. And maybe in places if it isn't wet enough to hold the powder, that will give us quite an interesting effect. We shall see. I think I might pick those out with some tweezers. Yeah, see, that's plenty embossing powder on there. Step one. Where are you? I'm seeing them emerge. Plenty embossing powder on there. Step two. Where's the doorway? Plenty embossing powder on there. Step three. And I think you can already see, maybe, that they are two different colours. So over the white is a subtler affair. Over the speckled egg, more intense. Let's get this back into the pot before I send it everywhere. Okay, lid on. Okay, so again, I'm just going to quickly do my heat embossing off camera. You've seen heat embossing here before. No need to watch me do it again. I'm going to point the heat tool at it and melt the plastic. There is a little bit where it hasn't stuck on there. Do I want to? Oh, maybe I do. Maybe, again, my random perfectionism enjoys imperfection sometimes and not imperfection other times. So this is one of those times where I think I do want to make sure there is a little bit of embossing powder on that bit as well. Where's it gone? Perfect. Perfectly imperfect because it's sticking up a little bit now because it was a glob of paint. But that kind of imperfection is making me happy. The other wasn't. Grand. So I'm going to heat these and melt the powder and I'll be back. I have also just zoomed in a little bit because we're working with ATCs, so they're pretty small and you can get a better look at what's happening. Now I need to make sure I try to stay on camera with what I'm doing. I absolutely love both finishes. So when you've got the embossing glaze over paint, you do get this rather amazing, oh, it doesn't want to focus now, I've come so close, sort of enamel effect, especially if you superheat it, which I did, until it bubbles, and then you get this gorgeous texture. And I do think, there we go, come on, have a look. It's because it's not used to being so far in focus. I do think that I'm probably tempted by the reverse house as opposed to two different houses. And I also like the variation of colour. So the two little cottages with their picket fences get to live another day. Live to work another day. Let's just try. Oh, okay. I like those as well. And I've got the darker one on the paler grid. I've got the paler one on the darker grid. Contrast. What happens if we go two darks? Got to try every option, you see. No, it's not that. What about if we try two lights? It could be that. Could be that. Yeah, I think it is that. Or is it that? I'm sorry. I could make this decision off camera, really. No, it's either that or that. And the darker one should be on the paler, which makes a difference. No, I don't like that. So I think it's you in the dark, you in the light, or it's the two lights. It's the two lights. For today, it's the two lights. Okay, the two darks are going away. Oh, decisions. Okay. Just going to check this again. See, what I'm wishing at the moment is that the light went that way. Okay, done. Stop fiddling. Enough already. Oh, I know what it is. It's because this branch is darker than this branch. That's why I keep wanting to put a light one over here with the dark branch. So maybe what it is as simple as swapping those two over, and then I can have my light one here and my dark one here. Ha ha ha. Many shades of green, and it matters. Grand. Good. Glad I solved that. Sometimes it's the little things. So I might be taking one of these little cones off so that you can lie a little flatter. And then the thing is, does the cone detract too much from the house? No, I think I quite like it. And so again, if I want just a twosome, oh, we could go with a threesome for now. See how we feel about that. I'm now being drawn back to the pale cottage regardless. Yeah, okay. I'm clearly just going to have to do two more ATCs that will do for those. Do we want some little labels is my next question. Let's have a look. Little Curator labels, maybe ready-made ones. I do have obviously some stamped ones. Oh, in fact, I had some that I stamped on some green festive paper. But I'm just looking at these dark greens and wondering if that's quite a nice thing to have as a small accent. In a couple of different shapes. And maybe a couple of these watercolour ones. Yeah, there's an extra, and maybe a palish green one. Let's see, I've come off camera, haven't I, as I fish in here. I know there are people who do wonderful things, like lay all these out so that they can see them all in one go and find the colour they want immediately. But for me, part of the joy is fishing through here and seeing different labels and noticing different shapes and colour tones. And oh, that's quite a big one. It could be one of those moments where I'm going to cut one in half and use half on each ATC. Okay, I think that's probably enough to be going on with. Let's have a look at them on here, just gently nearby the house. One tucked under. I don't need it coming through the windows though, so I need to be careful about that. Okay, don't want to cover up that big bit of crackle too much, so maybe it's up there. That is also a big bit of crackle, so maybe not there. Maybe it's going in there. There's just going to be a word sticker or something here, isn't there? Clearly. This is quite nice because it's echoing the little green squares on there. That's why those darker ones are calling to me, I think. Because we've got those little dark grids right on there. Yes. And maybe one more. Not a little green one. Sorry, didn't mean to move you. And that little green one maybe popping over the top. And maybe a little half one that's going to play nicely with the word stickers when they get there. Is it this? Well, I can stamp that as many times as I like and use more. So maybe we do that coming out of that house, that coming out of that house, and then it's not covering up so much crackle, but it is giving us a little touch of label down there as well. Good. I'm going to glue some things down. I'm going to be using mostly this, the Cosmic Shimmer. I'm just tempted to have another little look at whether I want also berries. See, on that one it's quite good because it heads off out of the way. That one is facing the wrong direction, so it would have to go up in a sort of curling inwards way. Maybe I do quite like that. The more the merrier. Or does it overweigh the house too much? These are all decisions you'll eventually get on top of. I'm going to glue most of it down and then I'll see whether I want the berries. I'll be back after the gluing. I've glued down the labels and I've glued down the greenery. As always, I've really only glued the central stem or the lower parts so that the top bits can still come up and give me lovely dimension. I haven't quite glued down the houses yet. And I've just been having a little look at these and I think maybe they're too much now because they're very dark. Ooh, but there you go. How to make them not be dark is to give them a little bit of wintry frosting. There we go. So that's the Snowflake paint back out. Where's my little brush? I want it quite dry probably because I don't want solid white. I just want a little dusting of frost. Yeah, and I think I'll put it on the stem as well because they were just a bit heavy and a bit overwhelming, the thing. This may not solve it. I may still not want them, but it's at least worth giving it a try to see if just making them a little less full-on dark helps with the... Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Okay, you get some as well then. There we go. I'm not suggesting I can improve nature. Nobody does it better. There we go. Somehow, there's less talking while I do that. It's respect for the thing I'm handling, I think. Oh, that's cute, isn't it? There's going to be some white spatter later, so that will draw things together as well. White spatter on that greenery will help us. As I glue this one down, it's clearly going to want to come off the page. If I bend it too far, it's going to snap, or it might be willing to yield. Usually nature wins on these little moments. I do like those nestled in there. I might get rid of just that little end bit of stem because I don't need it. Let's just check them the other way around to make sure it's not better, like so. This one is generally behaving better. No, I think that's fine. Oops, sorry, house. And then I want to have a look at some word stickers. I think stickers are going to be the quick way. I was wondering about digging out I've got a whole stamp set called something like House and Home that maybe I should just have a look at and see if there's something on there that I want, because I do want quite short fragments. Give generously. First task, as always, is to discover whether I want white or black. I quite like the white for the winteriness of that. Give generously. Yeah, I try to. Choose to see the good stuff. The good stuff. So lucky. We could have just the 2 words. So lucky. We could have bright side. We could have great things. I've clearly chopped off another phrase. Or maybe it's single words. Fearless. Original. Ha ha ha. Feeling that somehow. Just immediately. So let's grab original. So let's grab fearless. We might want independent as well. C. Fearless. Original. Come here. Tweezers. And what we might just do with that is give it a little edging of the scorched timber. I did that with a couple of the labels as well, the hand stamped ones. I did mention wanting a hand stamped label down here just to balance the ones up there. So let's have a look at whether that's still on if we're just using a single word. Yeah, yes, 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 and yes is the answer. You come here so that I can ink you, please. So there's just scorched timber on the sponge already from the last time. I don't need to re-ink it. And you here, just behind the picket fence, I think, but not so that we see you through the windows. Fearless. Original. Yes, very much so. Sometimes you just look at a thing and you go, so independent is going back in the sticker book to be used in a future day. We are, might keep that as well, don't know. We are live generously. We are great things. Okay, look. We are great things. That'll do. Okay, some more gluing down now. And I think for these, it's going to be my super heavy gel, just because that gives me that immediate cling. I did have a coffee stirrer out already, didn't I? Where's it gone? Yes, because I used it earlier. So these, it's just a little glob of this on the back of each of these where they make contact with the ATC. And that should hold that in place rather nicely. Make sure it's where we want it, therefore. I think it's like that. Yeah, so I can see the labels, I can see the greenery, I can still see some of the collaged green in the background, but you see not much. That's what a background is. It ends up in the background. Again, a little glob here, little glob here, and down it goes. Oh, actually, this one is sticking up, isn't it? So the glob there is useless to me. I actually need it on that little bit of stem. Come off, don't need you there. Or you might glue to a little bit of sticking up paper in a helpful way. Ah, it's right at the bottom of here that we need it. There we go. Like so. Those, little one of those. And then yes, I'll complete this label gluing again back with this and be back for a final splatter. I'm just going to show you how I lean on my friend the clothes peg when I'm gluing something like so, and I want it to just really bed down, and these also need one because they don't want to go flat quite. And 2 more. So just to hold those down while they make their first gluing effort and make sure they're not going to come up and vanish on me. So yeah, a little bit of spatter I think is our final. I need one of the big clothes pegs, so I've got a large size clothes peg, and just in order to make sure that house is lying flat, it does need that big clothes peg on there. These are still drying, that's fine. I'm not going to fuss them, not going to get in their way. And actually, if I cover this original in that direction, I could spatter and use that to make sure the house doesn't get, the word doesn't get too much spatter on. Perfectly happy for the house to have spatter. So here we go. If I'd been a bit quicker on the mark, we could have had that bit of white paint we already had, we could have used. Little spatter brush. There we go. Oh, that's quite liquid. That's going to not show up very much. A little bit on the house. I'm spattering my clothes pegs now. Excellent. A little bit of decoration never hurt a clothes peg. So the spatter goes on, and the other last thing I'm going to do once these are safe to pick up and mess around with is just a little bit of edging, inky edging with the scorched timber. I want to get some spatter on those houses, so I'm going to trust that they're glued enough now. Yeah. And just spatter a little bit onto that gorgeous speckled egg surface. Happy days. There we go. So I'm going to give those sort of a couple of minutes to just let that white spatter dry a bit, and I'll be back for the final session of the inking, and then we'll be diving in for our close-ups. I thought I was done, but I'm just wondering about a little word token. I'm just going to look at the shape of it on the ATC to start with before I worry about what the word might be on it. Just in terms of a little bit of cover for where those sprigs are joining. No, it's too much. It detracts from the house. It's not good. What might be good is one of the delightful little number brads, but of course I can't stick that through my MDF surface. There's an advantage to paper. I'm wondering about other little accents we might put in. This we know is too big and too much. Is it? Yes, it is too big and too much, and you're still wobbling. Apologies, I'll leave you alone. Little tiny, ooh, I know, those little tiny sparkle dots. Maybe. Let me go and find those. There's a lot of coming and going today because I'm playing. I didn't know where we were going to go, but I do love where we've got to. Back in a sec. These are not actually what I was thinking of, but maybe one or other of them will do the job. So these are some little half pearl. They've got a flat back. I'm just wondering about positioning a couple of those around to catch the light. That's quite nice because it has a snowy effect. Or there are these little screw heads, and I was sort of in the mood for something metal, as you saw from me trying the token. So let's have a look at one of these on here. But a screw head I sort of feel would want to go in each corner to make sense. That would be really cute. There's little tiny ones as well. But do I have enough? Do I have 8? 1, 2, 1. Come here. 2, 3. So there are 3. There are 4 with Phillips screw heads with the cross on, and there are 4 with the other. Oh, come on, behave. Okay, fine, don't behave. Be a pain in the neck. Let's put you there. And it's a bit too orderly, I think. Would it work better with the larger ones? But I'm not sure I've got 8 left of those. I think you may have used one somewhere. Let's have a look at you on there. Or do we just want 3 little points of light? So the 4 gives me great orderliness. 3 gives me that lovely randomness. As they say in floristry, an odd number of stems in a bouquet is always going to be more pleasing to the eye. So 3 in sort of random positions around, just giving me a little snowy look. They're both good, aren't they? Okay, I'm going to look at them for a little bit, make a decision, and you're just going to have to come back for the close-up to see which way it's gone. But what I will do, and this might make a difference to which ones I'm going to choose, is the promised little bit of inking. It's going to be quite subtle, but I just want to, I think I just want to draw the eye inwards a little bit by just firming up the edge. Where there are things sticking out, I'm not going to try and go over the top of them, but I think that's just going to give me a little bit more interest, particularly along this empty edge, as it were, it's going to be nice to just refresh the attention towards that crackle. So let's have a look at those two lying there. Yes, I like the edging. So I'm going to do the edging. I'm going to decide between the pearls and the screw heads, and join me again for diving in for the close-up. Thank you so much for your company, as always, on this creative journey. I will try to leave details in the description down below of what we've been using. And if you haven't yet subscribed, do join us for more few minutes of fun, tag time. There will be occasional books still, and craft supplies deep dives, all of that kind of business. We're coming up to almost a year of regular posting here, so I can hardly believe it. Thank you all for your support. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting all.